I used to think Manhattan was an open book. You could read a person by her shoes, vintage Pradas or Union Square Converse, by the way she flagged a cab or slid through the Bryant Park crowd during lunch. As a journalist, I prided myself on noticing those things, the small tells that made a story real. But there's nothing open about New York's secrets. I learned that the hard way. And by the time I realized it, I was headlines myself. My personal life, dissected by the same hungry eyes I used to feed stories to. My name is Lauren May. I'm 30. Maybe more internet famous than I'd like to admit, thanks to 3 years writing the Inner Circle column for the New York Observer, a feature devoted to the affairs, scandals, and whispered betrayals of the city's social elite. I started the column as a plucky 25-year-old on the fashion beat, thinking I'd move on to real news. But nothing sells papers or clicks like a well-timed love triangle or a socialite caught with the wrong person on her arm. My friends called me gossip with a conscience. I like to believe that was true, even as a couple of my exposés ended relationships, careers, and at least one mayoral campaign. On the surface, I had the perfect life for a single 30-something in Manhattan. A sunlit one-bedroom in Soho with a view of the laundry lines, brunch at Bubby's, drinks at the Crosby Street Hotel with the other writers, and the kind of parties where you brushed shoulders with people from Page Six and Netflix. My mother sometimes asked if I ever paused long enough to fall in love. I told her, half joking, half sad, that I fell in love with the city every day, and that was enough. It's funny how easily we lie to ourselves. My story, the one that would unravel everything, started on a humid evening in July. I was nursing a dirty martini at Pegu Club, pretending to skim press releases on my phone, when I spotted Charlotte Price across the room. Charlotte was irresistible headline material. She ran a billion-dollar gallery on the West Side, married to an up-and-coming congressman, and according to my sources, was never out after 10 p.m. Except she was, right then, in a corner booth with Evan Drake, a hedge fund star 15 years her junior. After a quick chat with the bartender, whose tip alone might have paid my rent that week, I learned Charlotte was a regular, always with the same nephew who smoked strawberry vapes and paid in $100 bills. As I watched them laugh, Charlotte's hand lingering on Evan's, my journalist's instincts kicked in. But as she looked up and caught my eye, she smiled wide, like we were old friends. I felt a jolt of guilt, as if I'd been caught snooping in someone's diary. I couldn't help it. I snapped a photo, just in case. The story would have ended there if I wasn't a little drunk and a little desperate for a scoop. So I texted Francis, an old friend at Page Six. Price at Pegu with Drake. Not a family reunion. Want pics? Francis replied with a single word, always. By the next morning, the Observer's inbox pulsed with anonymous tips. Spouses suspected of infidelity, assistants promising tell-alls, someone claiming they had video of a state senator in a Brooklyn speakeasy. I filtered the wheat from the chaff, eyeing Charlotte's name and number as they appeared. Flagged, private. The city buzzed with rumor and anticipation, a scandal brewing, and I was the storm that week. As the Charlotte and Evan story exploded, West Side Queen in Wall Street Web, I kept my head down, diving into meetings and churning out follow-ups. My boss, a whiskey-soaked Brit named Stuart, called me into his glass-walled office and grinned. I hear we're breaking hearts again, May. Business is good. I shrugged, feigning indifference. They break themselves. I just write about it. He studied me over his glasses, like he was measuring my soul. Just be careful with the next one. These people play rougher than you think. Don't forget what happened with Marcus Feldman. I nodded, remembering the angry calls, the night at the precinct, the sense that I'd gotten someone's life wrong. On Friday, I attended a benefit gala at the public library. The marble was cool under my heels. The city's elite swanning around in borrowed diamonds and champagne. I spotted Charlotte, alone this time, her face expressionless as reporters swarmed around her. My own phone buzzed. A new tip from an anonymous sender. Subject: May's next scoop. I have a story you won't believe. Meet me. No names. If you want the truth about Evan, bring your own secrets. My fingers trembled as I read it, excitement and anxiety mingling in my chest. I typed where and when. The answer came instantly. Tomorrow, 3 p.m., Grand Central, Track 23. The next day, I wore a navy blazer, hair tied back, every muscle tensed like an athlete's. I watched the streams of humanity under the vaulted ceiling, searching for someone who looked like they didn't belong. At 3:10, a woman in a wine-red coat sat beside me. Late 30s, pale, with the rigid poise of people who have too much power or too little freedom. She handed me an envelope. Evan Drake is not who you think. Look deeper, and be careful. Someone's watching you. Inside were printouts, email exchanges, screenshots, and a photo. Evan hand in hand with a woman. Definitely not Charlotte, hiding from streetlights in Alphabet City. The emails suggested blackmail. The woman's name was blurred, but the body language was unmistakably intimate. My hands shook as I left Grand Central. I felt the eyes of the city pass over me, cold and hungry. That night, back in my apartment, I called my best friend, Maddie, a criminal attorney with a flair for melodrama. "It's probably nothing," Maddie said. "But don't be stupid. This is bigger than it looks." I started digging. After days of late-night research, old tax filings, encrypted Instagram messages, and 2 awkward run-ins at the gym, I discovered that Charlotte's nephew, Evan, was tied to a string of offshore accounts and had ties to a real estate developer, Rudy Lasco, currently under federal investigation for racketeering. The blackmail wasn't personal. It was business, and Charlotte was the real prize. I published the story with the Observer's lawyers hovering over every line. The fallout was swift. Charlotte's husband issued a statement denying all wrongdoing. Evan vanished, and Rudy Lasco's assistant made a tearful call to my office, offering clarification. My inbox flooded with new tips and veiled threats, but I hadn't seen the real twist coming. 2 nights later, I was woken by banging on my door. Maddie, in pajamas and a trench coat, pressed her phone into my hand. "You need to see this, now." On the screen was an email, forwarded from an anonymous account. The subject line: "Lauren May can't keep a secret." Attached, photos of me in a bar 2 months ago, lips dangerously close to Ben Kramer's, a novelist who at the time was very publicly married to Julia Kramer, star of a TV drama and frequent subject of my columns. I'd never meant for that night to get out. Ben, drunk and lonely, had kissed me. I pulled away, but someone snapped a photo at just the right moment. The sender's message was clear: retract your story on Charlotte, or your secret goes public next. Panic is physical. A tightening in your throat, a dizziness behind your eyes. I sat on the couch, knees to chest, while Maddie paced. "What are you going to do?" she asked. "I don't know," I whispered. I'd spent so many years exposing other people's truths. I'd never imagined my own could be weaponized. My options were limited: bury the story, betray my readers, or let myself become gossip fodder. I decided to publish a brief follow-up clarifying certain details, but refused to retract the story. I believed in my work, and for the first time, I understood the devastation my writing could cause. Days passed. The Observer's page views skyrocketed. The city was obsessed. And then, inevitably, my photos leaked. Suddenly, I was everywhere. Lauren May's secret affair. Is the queen of gossip more than a reporter? My inbox was poison. My Twitter blew up. People, strangers, picked apart my motivations, my ethics, my body, my dress at the bar, my old breakups. Julia Kramer filed for divorce. Ben's publisher issued statements. My boss's tone changed. Take some time. Let things cool off, Stewart said. We can pull you back in a month or two. Instead, I fled. I crashed at Maddie's place in Brooklyn. Turning off my phone, scrolling endlessly through hate and love-filled messages. My mother called every day, begging me to come home to Vermont. But one morning, Maddie sat beside me on her blue velvet sofa, tea in hand. You can't let them beat you, Laure. You've always found the truth when no one else could. Maybe it's your turn now. She was right. I started writing, for myself at first, about shame, about secrets. I returned to the city in September, less famous, more cautious, but somehow freer. I wrote a new column, this time under my own name, no pseudonyms. Front Page Secrets explored the cost of living publicly, of loving imperfectly, of telling the truth even when it hurts. The Observer risked printing it, and, to everyone's surprise, the first piece went viral. Letters flooded in. Women who had secrets too. Husbands who forgave. Friends who wished they'd approached their own mistakes with more honesty. Occasionally, I ran into Charlotte Price at gallery openings, her hair a little grayer, her eyes less wary. She always nodded at me, like we'd both survived some battlefield. Sometimes, I spotted Ben across a crowded cafe, and we'd share a brief, awkward smile. Two people marked by a single, regrettable mistake, but learning, somehow, to move on. Maybe Manhattan's not an open book, but if you look long enough, you'll realize we are all just stories looking for a reader, hoping to be understood. For years, I chased the secrets of others, never dreaming my own might be front-page news. Now I know, when you live in the city of headlines, the sharpest truth is the one you're brave enough to write about yourself.